How we doing?
Good. Oh, doing good. Oh, okay. Yeah, first of all, we're super excited about, our 8th pick, getting Tet. He's somebody that we obviously really liked. Thought he could really add a different dimension to our offense and just add another playmaker to the offensive side of the ball. So not only a great player, but he's a great kid and somebody that Dave and I really value. So we're excited to have him in the building and excited to get going with him.
Can you tell us about some of the calls that you were fielding? We heard that you were fielding some calls for that number 8 pick.
Yeah, we did. We had a few calls. Obviously, you entertain everything, and at the end of it, we wanted to get our guy, and we're excited about it.
What wide receiver at this point versus defense, which you said was a big need coming into the offseason?
Yeah, and it's still a need, and we have 8 more picks. So we wanted to add the best player. We wanted to follow our board of who we thought was going to help us the most up there. So again, we got our guy, and we're excited about it.
You said he adds a different dimension, actually, for both of you guys. What is that dimension, and was there any concern about kind of his lack of, elite speed?
Yeah, I think he has really good play speed. I think the thing that pops off the tape about Ted is just how smooth he is, his body control, his ability to adjust to all types of throws, his catch radius, and his hands are elite. He catches everything outside his frame, and he can win the jump ball down the field and in the red zone. He's a guy that has 18 touchdowns the past 2 years, so he puts the ball in the end zone, and obviously that's something that we want to do.
Dave, do you view him as a day one impact starter?
Absolutely, he's going to have to work for it. He certainly, comes in just like everybody else, and comes into a talented group. Probably the thing I'm most excited about is just the further we dug in, the pro day, all the postseason work, just getting to know the guy, spending time with him. We had him here on a 30 visit, to be able to spend a little bit more time and just making sure that he was the right fit for our team. The type of players we're looking for. They love playing ball. They love to work on their craft. and it really shows up, when I just kind of, we were, Dan and I just the last couple of days, as we're getting ready for this pick, we're just like nitpicking, and like, so I put my receiver coach hat on, and just watched his pro day and watched his just his route craft, the way that he can reduce his surface in the top of routes as a 6'4" guy, the way he comes back to the ball, some of the things that you look for as a great starting point for a receiver, and so, giving us that good size element, the red zone target, a lot of things to be excited about, so something that was really cool for us to just come together on, and kind of knew, like, unless somebody blew us out of the water with something, we weren't going to let our guy pass, and so it was a great moment for us.
How much of an impact did the additions that you guys were able to add on the defensive side of the ball in free agency, how much did that impact your draft board?
You certainly take it all into consideration, but like Dan said, we follow the board. You rank the players how you like them and where the talent's at, and so you just stay true to it. And it comes right to you. Some of those picks right before us, really thought, the fifth pick was a big moment for us. Kind of like what was going to happen here that was going to help us get our guy at that point. And so, with Cleveland taking Mason Graham right there in that spot, the board kind of felt like Ted's going to make it, and we're holding our breath right there, for a couple more picks, but really excited about that.
You guys as a program have preached size and length. Obviously, McMillan fits those molds. I'm just curious, how does he fit into like the wide receiver room from a complementary standpoint, outside of those attributes?
Yeah, shoot, you got like a basketball team going on right now. There's different attributes, and Xavier, the power and speed he brings, Thielen's craftsmanship. You saw Jalen Coker come on strong last year. Tet all of a sudden brings in this really long, 6'4" target to kind of round out the group. So, it's a really cool group to think about. And I mean, obviously, like right off the bat, Brad and Rob come down the hall, and I'm like, all right, boys, here we go. And so pretty exciting.
I know I harp on this point a lot, but you're a former wide receivers coach. Brad's a former wide receivers coach. Rob, all of his accolades. You guys have invested so heavily in wide receiver. From a developmental standpoint, how much pressure does that put on you guys to kind of deliver and make that group kind of ascend?
I love that. I love for the pressure to be on us to utilize these guys with their talents, the unique abilities they have, to fit them into the core of our schemes, to continue to find out who we are, and to find that identity, in the pass game. And then, of course, just from a team standpoint, just getting football players, getting dogs, getting playmakers, and we really felt like we got that intent.
How much did just the way Bryce finished the season and seeing that uptick, how much did that go into like saying, look, we got defensive needs, but we got to get this quarterback another weapon?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me it's and for Dan as well, we got to do what's best for the team, and the best thing we can do is to evaluate our board to stay true to where we have guys at. And when you really like have conviction about a player and they come to you, the alternatives, like the trade alternatives and all those things, they got to like blow you out of the water, to pass up on all the work that's been done, not just, myself and Dan, but his whole staff, my staff as well, just looking at these guys and being able to evaluate them and so that it's a collective decision, so that we all go into this thing with a commitment to make the Panthers better.
You guys both had said individually this offseason that you were good with the receiver group you have. Clearly, you felt it needed another piece, though.
No, I wouldn't so much say that. I mean, I just think, again, like you follow your board and you take the best players, and Tet was high on our board. We obviously felt really good about him, and he was there for the taking, so we didn't want to pass up on a good player.
Was there a particular moment where you guys looked at each other and said, okay, this is our guy?
I felt like it was about like every time we watched him, we're just like, another great catch, and just the way that he just it's effortless, that the way he catches the ball, and he catches everything outside his frame, and he's just a great receiver that is super fluid. His body control is some of the best I've seen in a while. So, he's exciting.
And the one thing that I really learned from Dan just through the process is the biggest challenge, which is all still new to me as a head coach, is to get into the horizontal comparisons of offensive players versus defensive players. And when you start looking player for player and the dynamic way that they move, the dynamic way they play, and having to try to compare them across different positions, apples to oranges, was really kind of where we came back in the process and kept putting him on. And then you're like really excited. And you almost can't turn the tape off. So it's like it stood out, in such a special way that, he made the decision easy for us.
Yeah.
You guys 2 years in a row, a wide receiver, first round, you turn it into an offensive guy there?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm turning into a guy that just wants to bring good football players in here, and it's just another opportunity to bring a great player in here.
Is there a chance you're not done today?
No. Yeah. No, I think we're done. Yeah.
So,
I was like, no. I meant like, no, we're not.
When you look at last year's draft,
Your eyes got really big, Bob.
yeah, I was like, oh, okay, we're gonna be busy. When you look at the way you guys handled last year's draft, now that this first pick's in, what lessons can you possibly take from last year that you might apply now to day 2 and day 3?
Yeah, I think it's just going back, reassessing your board, and trying to figure out what guy is going to fall to us at 57, and then just kind of weighing the options of, hey, should we trade up? Should we stay where we're at? Should we trade back? So, I just think all options are on the table again, right? With this second pick, and, we're just going to attack it, and we're going to follow the board.
If you had traded back, did you have like a
We had a lot of people sniffing around. I think it would have had to be something above and beyond, for us to kind of pull off this pick. But yeah, that's where we were.
You said you had some good conversations leading up to the draft with him. Can you talk about the cultural fit that he might be with this team?
Yeah, I mean, and then speaking to just kind of like the lessons learned from one year to the next, we look at the guys that we brought in last year, and they fit the profile of what we want for Panthers football players. And so that's really that commitment, kind of looking at the guys that that just, like, the more that we watched him, the more that you see the different parts of his craft show up. You can tell this is a guy that works on it a lot. For a 6'4" guy to be able to reduce at the top of his routes the way he does, that takes work. And his speed cuts and all those things, that you just kind of see somebody that's working on his game. And so I think just taking a note out of that, and just knowing that we're getting another person that fits into what we're trying to do, and the guy's a baller, and that's like, there's a simple way to look at it. You watch film, and the ballers show up, and they make plays in big moments, and they're always looking to do something special.
For one of you, the defense had historical struggles last year. With the offensive wide receiver group, you have 2 guys already above 6 foot, 6'3". What would you say to the fans about what you believe about this defense, not taking a pick in the defensive side of the ball this early in the draft? What would your message to the fans be about what you believe about this defense?
I'll go first. Same thing. We're trying to do the best thing for the Panthers, and that's our commitment. Is if we can stay true to our evaluation process and follow the board, be disciplined about that over time, we'll select the players that we have conviction on, that we're all on the same page with, all on the same board. All on board with, to make those choices, And so I think the consistency of the players that we're looking for is what we're after, And I think that it's been said, in different ways, like if you start to chase needs, and you're not just being true to your process and true to the players that come to you and the ones you have belief in, I think that sometimes that you can get yourself a little bit out of whack and not in alignment for what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and we did attack our defensive needs through free agency, and again, we have eight picks left, and our board has a lot of defensive guys on there as well. So it's definitely not something that we're going to neglect.
Dave, I don't think you answered this already. Apologize if you did, but have you communicated with Bryce yet about this?
Yeah, right away. We got him on speakerphone and talked to Bryce. He's fired up. So another Southern California guy. They kind of played. They were in different times, but Servite High School, Mater Dei are rivals. And they're kind of in the same area. So there's no love lost there. But I think for the culture of what we're trying to do, that part is just a bonus.
And a little bit similar question, but do you, on something like this, do you communicate to Xavier Leggett, who might feel a little threatened by this pick?
Not right now. Right now, we're celebrating this moment with our guys, and when Ted gets here, again, tomorrow will be an opportunity. He'll be in here at some point, so I'm sure, the fans will be able to meet him at some point. tomorrow. But right now it's just about celebrating this moment. And when he comes in here, he's a Panther. He's one of us.
Was this pick something?
Have an indictment of Leggett in his early development.
No, Xavier, he wants to win, and that's all Xavier cares about. Just kind of going back to that question, Xavier wants to win, and he's hungry to go out there and compete and show up big this year. And I know he's been working his butt off, and we're excited about him, and we're excited about the team and the direction that we're headed.
All right, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
See you guys.
Trying to get you home early tonight. Thought we would be here for a while.